Hello, I hope you had a great day. Well, at this time I will tell you about an interesting book that I have read that a movie was made. But the book and the movie are great. But of course, in the book we can find the history in a way more complete and detailed, without cuts, without censorship, without any obstacle to the subject in question. And what else do we like than full stories, right? Good. During my presentation, I will talk to you about various aspects of the book, mainly about the title of the book, the author, the main characters, the plot, the theme, the space and place of the events, my opinion about it, also fact of whether I like it or not, and clearly give me reasons, and finally my recommendations. I hope you enjoyed this review as much as I liked the story and what it left me to question. Well, going into detail, the book I am going to talk about is nothing more and nothing less than Clockwork Orange. Many may have seen the movie or perhaps not. Perhaps they have heard of some analysis of the subject on which the story is centered, or maybe not. It does not matter because after this presentation you will know what this book is about and you will be able to discuss it with your friends. Okay, so this book was written by John Anthony Burgess Wilson, who was an English writer and composer. He was born on February 25, 1917, Manchester, England, and passed away on November 22, 1993, with the age 76, London, England, for lung cancer. Borges worked as an education officer in Brunei and Malaysia after the war. In 1959, he passed out in a class in Malaysia. He was diagnosed with an inoperable brain tumor with little chance of long-term life. This fact inspired him to write, with the intention that his wife, Lynn, could live comfortable on income from copyright. He retired from teaching and became a full-time writer who lived with the disease for several years. He wrote 5.5 novels in 1 year. The brutal diagnosis, which predicted at least a couple of years of life, was not finally confirmed in the facts, a circumstance that is often offered as an example of the beneficial influence that artistic activity should have on human health. That half novel writing with the conviction of a near death would later become his most famous literary work. Therefore, he wrote and published more than 50 books covering a wide variety of topics throughout his career. He is the author of an enormous amount of literary criticisms, essays, for example, on Shakespeare and Joyce, newspaper articles, and a score of cruel and chaotic novels. Well, okay, so I will continue to tell you about the characters in this literary work. First, Alex Delarge, the novel's anti-hero and leader of his Drogos friends. He often refers to himself as her humble storyteller. His last name is only revealed in the film adaptation of the novel. Alex likes violence and classical music. Second, Georgie or Georgie, Lieutenant who is aspires to command. Georgie tries to undermine Alex's position as the leader of the gang. While Alex is in prison, he is killed. He is killed by the owner of the house where he had entered to rob with Pity and Dean. So, Pity, the most rational and less violent of the gang. He is the only one who doesn't take sides when the drugs fight. This character later founds a family and is reunited with Alex, causing him to consider joining a normal society. So, Dean, el lerdo, an idiotic and completely short member of the gang, continually sponsored by Alex. He later becomes a policeman, demanding revenge from Alex for the abuse he once suffered under his command, and together with Billy Boy, they beat him up in the woods. Okay, so Deltoid, a neurotic social worker tasked with keeping Alex on the right tracks. Apparently, he does not know how to deal with young people and lacks empathy or understand of his troubled position. The prison chaplain, the character who first asks if the forced good is really better than the bad chosen, the only character who is truly concerned for Alex's well-being. Despite this, Alex does not take him seriously. Alex is nicknamed Chaplino, or a nod to Charlie Chaplin. Yes, it's very funny. The Minister of the Interior or Inferior, the man who decides to let Alex collaborate in the experiment of the Ludovico technique. So, Dr. Brodsky, a malevolent scientist and co-founder of Ludovic technique, yes, continued Dr. Brano, Brodsky's college and co-founder of Ludovic technique, too. He seems friendly and almost fatherly to Alex at first before forcing him in the theater to be psychological tortured. He much more passive and Brodsky and talks less. Alexander, an author who was writing his mother's pies, A Clockwork Orange, when Alex and his drugs work into his house, brutally beat him, and then gang raped his wife, causing her death some time later. He was deeply marked by these events, and after meeting Alex 2 years later, he used him as a guinea pig in a sadistic experiment to demonstrate the ineffectiveness of Ludovico technique. Otto Skadelik, Danish fictional composer. Okay, the characters. Okay, followed by the characters, now we will focus on the plot of the story. Alex is a charismatic criminal and sociopath, leader of a small gang of libertines who he refers to as drugs. Pity, Georgie, Dean. The four wear a very particular outfit: white t-shirt and pants with suspenders, testicular protector, high-top boots, a typical English bowler hat, eye mask, at certain times false eyelashes, and Alex Cass, and face paint in drugs mask when they are riveted to ultraviolence. Yes, in addition to being armed, Alex uses a cane and inside he camouflages and knife life Pity and Georgie, not Dean, who has chains. Alex narrates most of the film in Nadsat language, a contemporary slang used by them which combines Slavic language, especially Russian, with English and Cockney. For example, Milizzo, policeman, Drugo, friend, Chelobeoko, child, or Maloko, milk. He irreverent and abuses others. He lives with his parents, to whom he constantly lies in order not to go to school. His room is equipped with speakers. On his bed he has a quilt covered with rubber bricks. As a pet, he has a snake named Basil, and has a compartment full of lots from his thefts. Okay, the basic dilemma that is evident in this story, as we can see that A Clockwork Orange recounts the crimes of a gang of British youths led by Alex after being tried and sentenced to prison for his actions. He agrees to undergo a psychiatric treatment called Ludovico in order to reduce the time of his sentence, and treatment that is still in the experimental phase. That everything takes an unexpected turn, exploring timeline, social and political themes. Clockwork Orange reflects in uses such as juvenile delinquency, psychiatric free will, and the moral corruption in authorities, disturbing and full of raw imagery of violence. It has become a cult film acclaimed by audience and critics, and has become one of Kubrick's iconic works. Set in the England of the future, the year 1995, but since 190 1965. Okay, so images the experiment Ludovico after. Okay, personally, this story seems incredible to me. It seems like a before and after in time that revolutions everything it touches, and the coolest thing of all, it does, depending on the belief and ideologies of each one. It will be interpreted in a different way, but another then leaves a dozen questions in your head that perhaps another person who has also read it to you cannot see it from the same perspective as you, and that is the detail. It also makes us see the space for human freedom in a world where the subject must choose between good and evil without any external conditioning. Or a reading from the theological idea of grace and redemption as a voluntary decision of the human being to choose the good. I highly recommend that it really. A Clockwork Orange is possible one of the most controversial and shocking stories to ever exist, converted into a work of worship since its inception. It proposed a controversial and uncomfortable reflection on human violence and on the social environment that generates it. Okay, so finally, I hope you found my presentation interesting and choose to read this story. You really won't regret it. And thank you again for your attention. See you later.